In a small, bustling village nestled between rolling hills and emerald fields lived a young boy named Arjun. He was known for his boundless curiosity, always exploring, always questioning. But Arjun's mind was like a butterfly, flitting from one flower to the next, never lingering long. He would start a painting, only to abandon it for a game of cricket. He'd begin reading a book, but soon leave it unfinished when something else caught his eye. His teachers admired his enthusiasm, but often reminded him, "Arjun, to truly master anything, you must learn the power of focus." One day, a traveling sage visited the village. With a long white beard and eyes that seemed to see right through to one's soul, the sage gathered the children beneath a giant banyan tree and spoke stories of far-off lands and impossible feats. Arjun listened, mesmerized. After the story ended, Arjun approached the sage, his heart brimming with questions. "Sir," he asked, "how do people accomplish great things? How do they become heroes in your stories?" The sage smiled gently and replied, "Greatness is not only in talent, but in the ability to remain focused on your calling, even when the world tries to distract you." Arjun pondered these words, but their true meaning eluded him. He wanted to understand, so he asked, "Can you teach me how to focus?" The sage considered the boy and said, "Meet me at sunrise by the riverbank and bring an empty clay pot." The next morning, Arjun arrived as instructed, the early mist still hugging the grass. The sage handed him a small pitcher and said, "Walk along the river's edge, fill this clay pot to the brim, and bring it back to me. But there is one condition, not a single drop must be spilled." Arjun nodded, determined. He walked slowly, his eyes glued to the trembling surface of the water in the pot. The river sparkled, birds sang, and villagers waved at him. But Arjun didn't look up, didn't pause to greet anyone or admire the sunrise. Carefully, step by measured step, he made his way back and set the brimming pot before the sage. "Did you see the kingfisher darting over the water?" the sage asked. "No," Arjun replied. "I was watching the pot." "Did you hear the children laughing nearby?" "No, I was focused on not spilling the water." The sage nodded approvingly. "You see, Arjun, when your mind is truly focused on your goal, distractions fade into the background." Arjun's eyes lit up. For the first time, he understood what it meant to focus. But as days passed, putting this lesson into practice was harder than he imagined. Whenever he sat down to study, the distant sound of laughter, the lure of the cricket field, or the flutter of a butterfly would still draw his attention away. Frustrated, he returned to the sage. "Master," he confessed, "I try to focus, but my mind still wanders." The sage smiled kindly. "Focus is not a switch you flip, but a muscle you train. Every time you bring your attention back, you make it stronger." Let me tell you another story. The sage spoke of a legendary archer named Eklavya, who practiced every day in the forest, training his eyes and hands to move as one. At first, Eklavya missed the mark more often than he hit it. Birds sang, wind rustled, and yet, with each arrow, he pulled his mind back to the target. Over time, his focus became unbreakable. Eventually, he could hit the center of his target, even with his eyes closed, because his mind no longer strayed. Inspired by this tale, Arjun started small. He set aside just 10 minutes each day to study without letting his mind wander. He would notice when his thoughts drifted and gently bring them back to the task at hand. Some days were easier than others, but with persistence, he found himself able to concentrate for longer periods. Seasons changed and Arjun grew. His grades improved and his artwork became more beautiful and complete. He finished books he once would have tossed aside. He practiced cricket with dedication, his skills sharpening with each focused session. Friends began to notice the change, and even his teachers marveled at his transformation. One year, the village announced a grand competition, a test of skill, knowledge, and creativity. Arjun decided to take part. The contest demanded not just talent, but the ability to stay focused through a series of challenges, solving riddles, painting under time pressure, hitting targets, and recalling complex stories. As the competition began, Arjun felt the familiar tug of nerves. Distractions buzzed around him, cheering crowds, chattering participants, the hot sun beating down. But he remembered the sage's words, the pot of water, and Eclavia's arrows. He drew his mind back to each task, one after another. When his thoughts began to wander, he smiled and returned to the present moment. Challenge after challenge, Arjun moved forward. He didn't always finish first, but he completed each task with care and attention. By the end of the day, his consistent focus had seen him through. When the results were announced, Arjun stood among the winners, his heart swelling with quiet pride. After the ceremony, he found the sage waiting for him beneath the banyan tree. The sage's eyes twinkled as he said, "You see, Arjun, the world is full of distractions, but with focus you can accomplish what once seemed impossible. The power to achieve lies not just in your hands, but in your ability to guide your mind." Arjun bowed in gratitude and realized that the greatest victory was not the prize, but the discovery of his own potential. From that day on, whenever life threatened to scatter his attention, he remembered the pot of water, the archer's steady aim, and the power of staying focused. And so Arjun's story became a lesson for all, reminding us that in a world brimming with distractions, true greatness is forged not by fleeting bursts of energy, but by the quiet, steady force of a focused mind. If we can harness that power, there is no limit to what we can achieve.